Can be anything.
Art Spiegelman is the father of modern American comics. When he was a kid, comic books were considered as illicit as pornography. But for Spiegelman, comics were like literature, where you could speak about the unspeakable, like Mouse, his groundbreaking graphic novel that tells the story of his parents' survival under the Nazis, portraying Jews as mice and Nazis as cats. It's considered by many to be the first true graphic novel. It won Spiegelman a Pulitzer Prize and helped turn comics from low art into high art. So just, I guess, tell our audience, what is Mouse about?
Mouse is a telling of the stories my father told me about his life in Auschwitz when asked, and it's about me trying to understand, assimilate, and present those stories in a comics format, dealing with the fugitive nature of memory, the difficulty of understanding, of transmitting information, and how one can engage with all those things simultaneously through a medium remarkably well suited to that endeavor, which is comics.
It sounds very complicated for a comic, but that probably sounds condescending.
Yeah, it does. It's not complicated. Maybe my language about it is complicated, but you asked me to explain concisely,
Well, I think
so
a lot
did.
of people who don't read what are now called graphic novels, thanks to you, don't realize how profound and deep comics can be. And that, I think that was something that was really important to you.
Yeah, I mean, they really were a window into art and literature for me. I used to think of comics as sort of a gateway drug into reading or something, you know.
So you were trying to tell your dad's story in a comic?
I was trying to tell the story of what it would mean to understand his story. So it was about my relationship with him and what it is that he lived through.
In the
Both.
Holocaust?
Yeah, so it goes from right before to after the Holocaust, but it's basically talking to my father as an old man and working out our difficulties with each other in such a way that I'm trying to re-inhabit his past enough to understand it. So it's about a cartoonist trying to understand his father by making a comic book about what he went through.
Are Jews a race, a religion, a nation, a people, a family, a culture? Many people would say they're all of the above. And the reality is the Jewish people are all of the above except for one of those, a race. How do we know the Jewish people are not a race? Because if you look at Jews from around the world, especially if you visit the land of Israel, you'll see that Jews come in all size, shapes, and colors. And besides that fact, anyone can join the Jewish people. If it was a racial definition, you can't join a race. But being a Jew is not just a national identity, and it's not just a religious identity. It's not just like being American or French or English or Russian, and it's not just like being a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist. It's both. There's a national component and a religious component to the Jewish people. There is a faith, but even a Jew who's not observant, who professes to not even believe in God, is still part of the Jewish people. And there's also a national component. But even a Jew who lives in Israel who's not observant is still part of the Jewish people. So it's complicated, but it's a combination of both. But the Jewish people are definitely a nation. The Jewish people have a land, a language, and a history. Ironically, we would say the Jewish people may have less of those things than most nations. Yes, the Jewish people have a land, and yes, there's been a Jewish state for 70 plus years. But for the last 2,000 years, the majority of the Jewish people have lived in a diaspora outside the land of Israel. Yes, the Jewish people have a language, Hebrew. But for more than 2,000 years, Hebrew was not a dead language, but it wasn't a spoken language. Only recently has it been resurrected as the national language of the Jewish state.
tolerance. Tolerance allows other people to have their opinions about non-essential things. Tolerance accepts preferences and ideas that are different than yours. Tolerance understands different ways families and cultures choose to live. The virtue of tolerance means that you are patient and accepting of different opinions, your spouses, your children's, and your friends. You respect the person and his or her right to have an opinion. It allows each family member the liberty and personal freedom of making choices. It helps them step outside their comfort zone and learn from and respect others.